hand it over to Jen.
Thanks, Greta. That was Greta Bergquist. She is the youth service consultant at the State Library, and we are kind of counterparts. She helps with youth in public libraries, and I am the school library consultant, and I help with youth in school libraries. And today we are going to be talking about some Gale K-12 resources that support distance learning. And I just want to make it clear from the get-go that this is not a how to use the Gale Databases webinar, because Gale does lots of those every month, and I'll show you sometime during today's webinar how to get to that if you want to sign up for one of their webinars. But this is more about understanding some of the resources that are already in the databases and the national support site. So today, our objectives today are to learn how to access the K-12 Gale databases, whether you're public or school, what supporting resources Gale offers, how to access those resources, and time permitting, a few tools that will be especially helpful during distance learning. Most of this access is right through OSLIS. So what I think I'm going to do is just stop sharing this presentation, and we'll come back to this at the end, and we're just going to jump to the live site. And let's see here. So what I want to do is I'm just going to escape from this, and we are going to go to oslis.org, as this is where you would access it in the schools. And my computer is my internet's kind of being slow today, so we'll give it a second, and if it's not going to go any faster, I'll just try disconnecting from our VPN, which can be an issue sometimes. So, alrighty, so on OSLIS, when you get here, there are 4 options: elementary student, educator, secondary student, secondary educator. We went over how to access this last week, but from either the elementary side or the secondary side, I'm just gonna hit on secondary student. When you get there, you have 3 options for, there's 3 sections on OSLIS. This section is all about learning how to do research. The one on the end is all about a citation generator that will cite sources for you. And in the middle is I need to find information, which is the access point, the central access point to the Gale K-12 databases. But the reason I wanted to start here, and I'll back up in a minute, but I wanted to start here because when you're on the Find Information page, whether you're on elementary or secondary, you're going to see a list of databases that are most relevant to K-12 from Gale. But if I go all the way to the bottom, I wanted to point out that we have this video at the bottom called "What is a Research or Library Research Database?" And I think that's especially helpful because sometimes we jump in and we tell kids, hey, let's use these databases. And that's just a vague, weird word to them. They have no idea what it means. And sometimes that is equally true for teachers. They're like, not really sure what you're meaning here. So if you're saying, hey, use the databases, and they're not really sure what a database is, then it's maybe not as helpful. So this video will explain it, but I wanted to take a second and tell you that what I've seen a lot of people doing is just comparing them to digital buckets of information. And back in the day, I don't know if you remember, there used to be a time when you could be with people in the same room. And during that time, some people have an actual bucket and they say, you see this Time magazine right here? And they have an actual Time magazine and they drop it in the bucket. Say, all those articles are in this database, and they hold up the bucket, and the bucket is the database. And then they do the same with a journal and a newspaper and maybe even a DVD. Like, you see this documentary about hummingbirds, this is also available in the database. And so they drop all those things inside the bucket, and then they hold the bucket up, or the laundry basket, or whatever you're using, and they say, okay, all of this stuff inside this bucket is available in a database. And so a database is like a digital bucket of information, and more specifically, a digital bucket of articles and images from magazines, journals, newspapers, and reference books. with a little audio and video thrown in. So this video kind of explains all that, goes into a little bit more detail, like about specialty databases like car repair and ancestry.com versus library research databases. Okay, but I wanted you to know that if I were going to promote the databases, I'd make sure that the person I'm talking to really understands what a database is in this context. And there's the same video on the elementary OSLIS site. I'm not going to spend a lot of time going over how to use OSLIS, but basically there's a switch site button up here. If you go to elementary student or elementary educator, and you have the same three options, different color scheme. I can see I'm in elementary from the URL one way, but if I go to find information, what I have featured is different because different articles, different databases are relevant to elementary. But if I go down to the bottom, this is one of those, this is a how to use databases videos for elementary students. And this is part of a series of videos that OSLIS has on teaching students how to do the research process. Okay, so I wanted to make sure you knew that. Another really cool comparison I've seen for older kids is Netflix. And they throw out like, hey, what do you know about Netflix? Well, you have to have a subscription. You have to log in. Right, you have to do the same thing with the database, and this is how you log in. What else? Well, the movies are divided like comedy and fantasy. Right, just like your database divides content by magazines and newspapers. And so they do a comparison like that. So starting with something that students really are already familiar with, Netflix, Amazon Prime, Hulu, whatever platform they're using. I thought that was really helpful when I learned that. So I'm going to switch now. So I've been showing you the student pages of the Find Information page, but I want to show you the difference if you switch to educator. And I happen to be on elementary student, so I'm just going to go to switch site and go to elementary educator. And I have the same three options plus professional resources, but if I go to find information, which is the page we were on, everything at the top looks the same as what you see for students. And there's this dividing line, and that dividing line, whether you're on elementary or secondary, anything above the line is the same thing students see, and anything below the line is there to help teachers or library staff. And there are a few resources I want to point out that are here to help you when you're working with the K-12 databases. One of them is this flyer that Gale made, and I'm going to try to open it. Hopefully it won't take too long. If it takes too long, I already have it open on another tab. Gale made a lovely flyer, and it basically highlights the K-12 databases that are the most relevant. And they just have them in alphabetical order, and it's just basically kind of a list. So this is something that you could give to a teacher. You could send them the link, or when you're back face-to-face, you could put it in their box, whatever you want to do with the flyer. But what I like about it is our statewide contract. I'm going to back up for just a second. We have the state library has a statewide database licensing program, and that is the reason we are able to offer these. And public libraries have access to them, academics, tribal, and school, and their access points are all a little different, which I'll talk about in a second. But because this isn't specifically for K-12, there's a lot of databases that are not relevant, and our total package has maybe 30, I'm gonna guess, and that can be, whoa, overwhelming. And so this flyer is a nice way to say, these are the ones you wanna focus on. These are the most relevant to K-12. And what I appreciate is on the back, they have a very visually appealing summary of a lot of their tools and features. I'm gonna zoom in a little bit on that. I'm gonna go to the second part here. Oh, they're talking about, well, now I can't see it, but I'll show you live in a second, but they're talking about some of the features like their share link, their listen tool, their translate tool. Some of these things we'll talk about in a little minute. Okay, so I'm just gonna go back down. Alrighty, so I wanted you to know about that flyer. Again, that is available on the Gale. Let's see if I can get there. Nope. I don't know which tab I wound up on. It's available on the on the OSLIS page that I was just on. Eek. All right, I know what I did. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to go back to elementary educator, and I'm just going to start again. That'll help us retrace our path. We want the Gale databases. They're always in Find Information. Once you're there, the top part of the screen is exactly like what students see, and then there's that dividing line, and there may or may not be content for educators, but there is on the Find Information page. So the other resource I wanted you to know about is a Gale K-12 database comparison. That's also a PDF. I made this, and it just has a little bit more information about each database. Like on this one, I started with the generic database that's good for everybody. The books and authors, it's a little bit like Novelist from EBSCO. It's a reader's advisory tool, but it just kind of gives, for the teacher who's like, I have no idea what these databases are and which one I should use. This column tells you about the target audience and the content, and this content gives you a little bit extra and a link to the product page from Gale's national support site. And the product page has videos and guides and other things we'll get into in a minute. All right, so for example, it'll say things like in context elementary, developed for K-5, good place to start for elementary level research. You know, it's giving tips for the teachers and or library staff if you're brand new to these databases. Okay, so as you scroll through, I featured, I don't know, a dozen of the databases, and then at the very end, there's a few extra bits of information. And also notice the date, updated in August 2020, because, for example, I just learned that Gale is making changes to their Power Search menu that I'll be sharing about on some of the Oregon School Library listservs. But once I understand those changes, I may be updating or adding to this document, and then there'll be a newer version, and you'll be able to tell from the updated date. Okay? So I think at this point, I'm just going to stop really quick and see if there are any questions. Looks like there's one. Is this flyer available in other language, particularly in Spanish? The Gale flyer, I think, is what that's talking about. The Gale flyer is not. Their Gale materials are not available in Spanish, but I will say that I know Arlene, who is the person at the State Library who's in charge of the statewide database licensing program. She and I have nudged Gale several times to try to get more materials in Spanish. And there is a database that is content that was originally, originally published in Spanish. It's called Informe. And so that one, it's not good for the younger kids, but middle school and up, it would be fine to use. And then somebody says, does everyone have their own login? Yes, Gale on the K-12 side has a login that is specific to every school district or private school. And I'm gonna get to that in just a minute. I just wanted to talk real quick about public library access versus school library access. So let's say that you're at the public library and you're trying to decide, well, I'm working with a K-12 student or teacher. Do I show that person my library's links to the database, or do I show the person the OSLIS route? Well, I'm going to say there's no pressure, and that's totally up to you. Some little hints or tips I would suggest. One is that if you know that this person that you're working with is extremely familiar with the public library's resources, maybe they already use your Overdrive products or whatever you might have, and they already use those, then feel free to just say, okay, well, look, all those K-12 databases on OSLIS are also here, and you can just link to them from our library website. And because they're already familiar with getting in using their library card number and their PIN number, which is usually how public library access works when you're not in the library. That's your entry point. That's your, I have permission to use this, entry point. But if they're not as familiar with the public library, or if sometimes one advantage of showing them on OSLIS is that they may go, oh yeah, I've seen that before. It kind of triggers, and then it provides a level of continuity. And so you could show them the OSLIS route as well. And the OSLIS route would just be, are you elementary or secondary? And then once they're picked, then you go to the find information page, and then you're here, which is where we are, okay? Another advantage of the OSLIS route is that you can, once you're here, point out other things like, well, if you're doing that research paper and after you find all your resources, you're going to need to cite those sources. So you could use MLA or APA for secondary citation maker, which I'm not going to go into, but I just wanted to point out that, you know, if you show them through OSLIS, you can tell them more about OSLIS than just the databases. So that's totally up to you. But getting back to how do you get in? Well, if you are working through the public library, like I said, if they're accessing from home, they're going to need their library card number and their PIN. But if you are working from a school library, the very first thing I'll say to all the school library people out there is, okay, I gotta close the chat window. I keep seeing the chat come up and then I keep reading that and get distracted, sorry. Okay, so what I would say for school library staff is, even though this isn't a traditional normal school year, I would still take this first step, which is to register your school or district's IP addresses with Gale. And that sounds scary and complicated, and your IT folks will know what I mean, and or just email me and I'll get the ball rolling for you. But once you have your school or district's IP addresses registered with Gale, if they are in the school building and they are accessing a Gale database, there will never be a login screen. It's wonderful. They can jump from database to database and there will never be asked to log in. That only works in, that's a school library thing. Okay, so, but what if you don't have your IP addresses on file, or what if you're not working from home? I mean school, sorry. I will throw out there real quick is Gale has created ways to integrate the Gale databases into a learning management system. I am not the contact for that, but I can put you in touch with the Gale folks if you're interested in doing that. Okay, so if you're using Canvas or Google Classroom, there are ways to make access to the Gale databases easier from directly within your learning management system. Again, there's no time for on this webinar, but you can just reach out to me and I will hook you up with what you need to know. Well, with the people you need to know. Okay, so all things considered, we're at home. We don't have, we're not going in through an LMS. So I'm going to click on any Gale database. I'm just going to use middle school as our launching point today. And I should get this. And that is what I'm calling a geolocation screen, okay? Gale has set up geolocation for us. And what that allows users to do is that if they remember their username and password, they can use this first column and log in like they always have. My username is blank, my password is blank, log in, I'm in, no problem, okay? But how many kids remember their username and password? How many teachers remember their username and password? So if you have forgotten your username and password, then you can use the middle column if you are a public school, excuse me, or the third column if you are private school or homeschooler. Notice that, okay? Homeschoolers and private schools. And basically what you're gonna do is just start typing. And I saw that somebody from Portland Public Schools is on here, so I'm just gonna act like I'm from Portland Public Schools. And I just start typing a little bit, and I start typing enough that I see, hey, there's my school district, Portland School District. And I click select and it's gonna let me in. I'm not gonna click select yet because once it lets me in, it saves it for 48 hours. So I'm not gonna be prompted with this again. What if you're a private school? Let's say that you were at Jesuit. Just start typing, there you go, Jesuit High School, click select. Or what if you were a homeschooler? Just start typing home and there you have your login, okay? The reason that we want them to use the middle or second column, why don't we just let them in? If they get this far, why don't we just say, good, you're in Oregon, you're in. Because we're trying to make sure that usage still gets attributed to your school district or your private school. And that's the only reason. And that's also why this little cookie only lasts, it's either 24 or 48 hours, because if you get the student who's like, yeah, whatever, I'm just gonna say the first one, or they accidentally choose the wrong one, then it's not going to attribute usage for forever to the wrong place. Okay, so I'm gonna go back to, let's just say Portland, and I'm gonna say select. And it's gonna let me into the database, okay? Now again, at the public library that you would have entered your library card number and your PIN instead of a username and password. Okay, so let me check my outline real quick. I wanna make sure that I covered everything I wanted to cover on that part. Again, some of you may not know what your school district or private school's login is, their username and password. Just email me and I will send it to you. I can tell you everybody in the state shares the same password. It's the word OSLIS, lowercase. But your username is unique to your district or your private school. So just ping me with an email and I'll get you that. And also, if you are working in a public library and you want to know the logins for all the districts or private schools that you tend to work with, then let me know, send me a list, and I'll send you all of that if you want to help promote it. Okay? Alrighty, so I think that's a good stopping point, and let's check to see if there are any more questions right now. See from Kara Kinsey, although for Gale, you can click on the Cite My Sources at the top of the article, can't you? Yes, excuse me. Once we are in an article, more specifically, I will show you that they do have a Cite Your Sources link. If you are using the Gale databases or like World Book and a lot of other subscription products, they tend to generate a citation that a student can copy and then paste into their running list of citations. But if you do not have that, then Citation Maker. If you have to generate a citation from scratch, Citation Maker is a good option. Libby says, how did you get to the Geo Link? So I'm just going to retrace all my steps. I'm just going to start from oslis.org. And I'm just going to say, I did elementary this time. So this time I'm going to say I'm a secondary student, but it doesn't matter which you pick, because whatever level you pick, you're going to get to a screen that gives you the 3 sections of OSLIS. And we tried to make it easy to find the Gale databases by putting a Gale logo here, which would obviously change if we lost our statewide contract. We'd use a different logo. But so you just go to find information, and then you click on any of the databases, the database that you want to get in. Now I'm going to show you that right now, when I click on it, it's not going to ask me for my login because it's remembering it. But let's see. Yeah. Anyway, I could show you that trick if we have time at the end. If you're ever trying to demonstrate that and you don't have access to it, I'm going to try something, Greta.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I'm going to try a new screen. If I lose you, let me know.
Okay.
All righty. So let's see. New share. I'm going to try an incognito window. And okay, Greta, tell me what you're seeing.
I see you've gone incognito.
All righty, that I have. So I don't know if you guys know, but all the browsers have incognito versions or privacy, or so when you're got your little icon, you can just right click at the bottom and you can say new window, new incognito window. Well, that's handy for lots of things. Like if you want to send a Google link to something and you want to make sure, oh, did I get my permissions right? You can open an incognito window, paste in your link, and then if it's prompting you to log in, oh wait, I didn't get that right because I was not expecting a login. But for here, I'm going to retrace my steps. And I'll just use elementary student this time. Find information is where our Gale databases are. Click on elementary. And this is a way to get that geolocation screen. You know, if you're trying to demonstrate this to someone or show it to someone and you're like, oh, I've already logged in today, it's not going to give me the geolocation screen, so now I can't show it to them. Just go retrace your steps using an incognito window, whether it's Firefox, Chrome, Edge, every browser has that option. And then you are going to get the same login screen, the geolocation screen, I call it. So just going to go back to Portland and say select. And then you're into the database that you wanted. Okay. All righty. So I'm going to close those. And Greta, does that mean you can see Gale in Context Middle School right now? Or are you not seeing anything?
That's what I see.
All righty. Perfect. I don't know if you could tell those who were with us last week, I had a little issue sharing my screen. And so now, you know, it's once bitten, 25 times shy. I'm like, keep asking. All righty. So let's move on to some of the databases that are the most helpful when you are working with students. So Gale recently rebranded a lot of their databases, and it's much easier to tell the name of the family that the database belongs to. And that's kind of helpful because when you're using a database from, okay, let's say In Context is a family. They all look the same, nearly exactly the same. And so the family means that they use the same interface, and it's just easier for students to jump around because they're not being like, oh, this looks different, I don't know how to use it now. A family keeps everything the same. Despite that, actually Gale has done a really good job of keeping databases from different families looking the same. It's very easy to find the tools you are looking for, even if you're jumping around from interface family to interface family. But what I want to focus on is you're going to notice the two we feature on the secondary page are from In Context. In Context are good databases to use to recommend for general K-12 research. And now they have an elementary, middle, and high school equivalent. So it just depends on what grade level you're working with. Direct them to the In Context elementary, middle, or high. Okay, this is a kind of a rhetorical question, but I'm going to give you 5 seconds to think about it. Why don't I see In Context? Just think about it for a second. Why don't I see In Context elementary if I'm recommending it? And ta-da, the answer is because we're on the secondary site. And so again, these databases are specific to the audience that we're targeting. So I have to go to the elementary site to see the Gale In Context elementary featured. Okay, so I was saying that the In Context family of databases is good for general K-12 research starting point. Again, I'm just going to use middle school, which I believe is already open. Yes, okay. So this is the point at which, you know, Gale might take over and say, this is how you do a search. This is how you do this. That's not what we're going to talk about today. I want you to know that when you're on any In Context database page, whether it's opposing viewpoints, US history, elementary, middle, or high school, you scroll all the way to the bottom from the home page, from the landing page. Whoops, I lost my scroll bar. Give me a second. And you're going to see educator resources at the bottom. There's a tab for curriculum standards. Excuse me. And you can search for national or Oregon, you know, state level standards. But what I really want to show you is this over here, the other educator resource. I think it's funny, educator resources under educator resources. But when you go to, yet again, educator resources, it is basically a link that will show you a lot of handy stuff for a teacher or a library staff member, okay? And right here under resources is a link to their product page. And this is basically, I like to say a little gold mine. but I'm not going to click on it yet. Okay, I just want you to know. So you can get right to all of the tutorials, recorded webinars, scavenger hunts, etc. for Gale in Context Middle School. And this is all, you can see it's coming from Gale, support.gale.com. Okay, but I want you to also see that there are other resources, like they have kind of generic guides at this point. Like they have a guide about how to integrate Gale links into Google Classroom. They have one about about their content levels. They have one about their persistent URLs, their sharing links. All handy. I have a few of these open. So if I were to click on this reading level one, I would get to this. I had it open because it can take a while to download. But basically, it's just going to explain how Gale does reading levels. And this is through the in context product. So if it's true for elementary, middle, high, opposing, viewpoints, and US history. They basically divide it into 5 groupings called level 1 through 5, and there's associated ranges of Lexile levels. But notice too that the color is different, and then it looks like a die. You know, it looks like you can tell which level you're on by the number of dots is what I'm trying to say. And then you just might have to remember what the Lexile levels are, but that's kind of handy for students to know. They've revamped this. They used to have 3 reading levels, and it was a triangle, a circle, and a square, and there was no other information. And you were like, I don't really know what the triangle means. So now you have a little more help. Okay, so teachers, library staff would probably find that helpful. Okay, let's see here. Alrighty, back to this page. Okay, so those kind of things are helpful in there. Then there's some teacher tools, takes you to the product page, it takes you to training materials, which I'll show you in a minute. But on the right-hand side, I wanted you to see that at Gale has a little bit of information literacy resources, a little bit of help for students how to do research. So like how to judge information, how to make a concept map, how to choose a topic. They have a tip sheet, and then they have a worksheet. I had not opened this today, so we'll see how fast this opens. There we go. Okay, so boom, there's something that you could share directly. Like if your teacher is just about ready to start a research project, and you know that your students always stumble on the developing a topic step, you might find this helpful, and or of course what's in OSLIS on the topic. But I just wanted you to know that Gale has a little bit of information about the research process. Okay, so here we go. Alrighty, so how did I get here? How did I get here? I'm gonna just retrace my steps. From any in-context database, I was in middle school before, so I'll go to opposing viewpoints, because it's also an in-context database. And once it opens, I'm not getting the geolocation screen because I've already logged in within the last 48 hours and it remembers me. But where is it? All of it's at the bottom of the home page. So the landing page, it has the big name and the big search bar. You go to the bottom and there's the same stuff. Okay, if I go to Educator Resources, it's the layout's the same. Okay. So all of that's true for in-context stuff. Well, what if I'm not in an in-context database? Like, what if I am in, let me choose one here, health and wellness, let's say. And I go to the bottom and there's nothing for me. Notice those were educator resources, and the in-context products were developed with educators in mind for the K-12 community. So that's why they have those links, whereas the other databases do not. But fret not, because you can just go to the Gale National Support site and find a lot of the same information. Okay, so I just want to show you that even if you don't know the URL, you can just type in Gale Support and you're going to get right to it. Gale Support. Or it's actually support.gale.com. Okay. So you can just use Google if you need to, but you're looking for Gale's national support site, just Gale Support. Okay. And once you're there, Their toolbar, they have a ton of stuff, but I want to point out a few things. One is the training center. Under training center, you could click on home, and it's kind of a landing page for all three of these. Let's just do that. Training center home. And you're going to see that you can watch video tutorials or sign up for webinars, which are the same options you had under training center anyway. Okay. I want to show you the video tutorials. If you were here last week with us for the OSLIS webinar, you know that OSLIS has some video tutorials about the research process, and Gale has video tutorials about using their products. And these are meant to be shorter. A lot of them are 2 minutes, 3 minutes long at the most. When you get here, this is the national support site. So it is not limited to what is only available in Oregon. So at this point, scrolling this list is not really helpful because you probably don't have access to a lot of this stuff. So I find it easier to just use their search menu over here on the left. And let's say I want to know what supporting materials they have for in context middle school. I'm going to pick a keyword from that seems unique, and that would be middle. And boom, there it is, middle school in context. And so what it's going to bring up now are all of the tutorials that they offer to help a user understand how to use Gale in context middle school. So they have one about their topic pages, and then they have several that are kind of generic that appear in all their videos. And they have like how to send to Google Drive, accessibility, that's a new one. I hadn't seen that before. Their site, using their citation within the product. Okay. I see I have a question about how did I get here? So once you get to the Gale National Support site, oh, I didn't want to do that. I thought that would take me. All right. Once you get to the Gale National Support site, whether you Google it by typing in Gale support or whether you go to support.gale.com. Once you're there, under training, I would say these are your best tabs here, training and product support. Training is where you're going to get to video tutorials. And then I just typed in the product name at that point to make it easier to find in the big old long list. Okay. And then that was the list of all the videos that they have that help the user. But, okay, let me get back. Oh, I'm the worst about jumping around, but that's all right. It'll give us a chance to remember it. It's support.gale.com. Okay. The other thing I wanted to show you under training is their webinars. Most of you are probably familiar with that because we try to promote that. Gale has a national webinar calendar. So these are not specific to Oregon, which means that some of the products we may not have in our statewide database licensing program. For example, I want to show you the last one, which looks really cool, Gale in Context for Educators. That is not a product that we have. But so be careful with what you're signing up for. Make sure it's actually something we have. But there is like, oh, let's find it here. This looks like a really cool one on September 18th. Prepare for presidential elections using Gale in Context opposing viewpoints. So if you were interested in that, all you have to do is say register now and fill out their form. Okay. And there are a few, oh, let's see if they cleared that off their form. Good. They used to ask for certain numbers that were like, what? I don't know what blank blank number is. If you run into that, you'll notice that it's never required information. So you didn't need it anyway to sign up, okay? But these are free. So teachers are welcome to sign up for this. I would not recommend a student sign up for it, but teachers and other staff who want to learn more about the databases can. All right. So I was on, I'm gonna go back to Training Center. I showed you what I want to show you here, which is video tutorials and webinars. I'm going to go really quick to product support. That's the other tab I want to show you. Real quick, under product support, you can get to icons. So let's say that you are putting the databases in your LMS or on your web page or wherever you want to link to them, and you want specific links for each database. You can get to them through Gale Support, Product Support, icons. And again, the name of what you're looking for, like maybe the elementary one, and you can download these icons or right-click and copy them to use on your website or wherever you want to use them. If you're doing a research page and you want to say, for this project, you should use National Geographic Kids and Gale in Context Elementary, you could have the two links to help them, you know, as a visual clue to what those are going to look like when they find them. Okay, but to me, my favorite support is under Product Support, Browse Products. So again, I'm on Gale Support, Product Support, Browse Products. And when I click on that, again, I get this list of every product they have, which we may or may not have access to through the statewide statewide contract, let's say that. And I'm gonna go look for, let's say, high school, because I haven't done that yet. So they have lots of things about high school. These bottom two are things we have access to. I'm gonna look up, I was interested in using, let's say, Gale in Context High School with my students, and I wanna know what supporting resources they have. So when I click on that, I get to this, like, everything you wanted to know about Gale in Context High School page. And you can use this sub-level navigation line, the dark blue line. They have a product overview, direct URLs, icons, lots of stuff, including title lists. I'll go back to title lists in a second. But what's especially helpful, you can get to it by scrolling or just clicking, is training. So when you're on any of those product pages, click on training, and it shows you all of the resources they have. Lesson plans, projects, scavenger hunts, resource guides, tip sheets. There's that one about the reading levels, or they call them content levels. There's all of the videos that they have. These are like recorded webinars that they've done related to this product. And here are all of the tutorials that are related to this product. So you don't have to go hunting in 3 different places. You just go back to Product Support, Browse Products, and you will find all of this. Just because that to me is the handiest one, I'm gonna retrace my steps. Let's say I don't remember the URL, so I'm just gonna, I want the Gale support page. So I'm gonna type in Gale support. And boom, it's the first link. Okay, once I'm on the Gale support page, I'm gonna go to Product Support, Browse Products. Product Support, Browse Products. And once I'm there, I'm gonna look for the database I'm most interested in, whether I scroll or type. Here I was interested in high school ones. That's the one I was after, high school in context. Actually, in context high school. And boom, there I am. It gives me all of this stuff related to it, but the handiest is under the training the anchor, the training anchor. So when I click on it, it jumps me down the page to the training section. Now, please understand that not every database has this much supporting material. But if they have any supporting material, you're gonna find it here. Okay? So that is handy for you to, like, if you wanted to introduce a teacher to this page, actually, I was gonna say that you could just send them this link, but I think this link would only take you to the browse page. Then they would have to browse for the product. It's not gonna take them to the actual product page that you selected at that time. Okay, I wanted to really quick talk about title lists. I personally think they're an underappreciated tool. A title list is just a spreadsheet very often that says, these are all of the periodicals or all of the reference books or other resources that we pull from to put articles into this specific database. So that's kind of handy to know sometimes. Like a social studies teacher might want to know, well, what kinds of stuff is it? So they might want to go to the U.S. History product page and click on title list and then open one of these, which, oh, I should have done earlier. I don't know how long it's going to take me to do that. Actually, it's opening as a separate thing. I'm not going to go in there, but it's just a spreadsheet. It's going to alphabetical order tell you every product that's in there. Let's say they were really hoping that American History Magazine is in it. Well, once the database is open, they can just do a control find, American History Magazine. And then they can say, oh, they have it, or oh, bummer, they don't. But look at all the other stuff they have. Okay? All righty. So let's see here. That is a good point to take a break and see if there's any questions I have missed so far. I think, let's see, I think we're okay on questions. Yes, Greta?
Yeah, I think we are. I didn't see any.
Okay. Well, then I'm going to move on to a few tips within a database. And actually, I'm just going to clear some of these. All right. So I'm using middle school, but this would be true for any in-context product. It just might look a smidge different, but you'll be able to find it. Okay. So I want to, any of the in-context products, they are, how do I want to say this? They are organized by topics. And what's really handy is this browse topics option, because you basically get to a big old long list that tells you every page that has a topic. What if it doesn't have a topic? Can you still find information on it? Yes, you can still search the old-fashioned way. Enter in some words and you'll find what you find. But if it has a topic, the topic page is very handy. Let's just see. Oh gosh, what do we want to do? I don't know. I'm trying to, let's do fast food. All right. And what is handy to know, this is true for any in-context database, is when you get to the topic page, it opens to an overview article that has been curated by a Gale editor. So they feel like this article will give the user a really good general overview of the topic. That is really helpful when a student is just starting research and they don't know anything about the topic, and we're telling them, okay, make questions, okay, find keywords, okay, narrow down your topic. And you're like, all I know is fast food is burgers and I like them. That's all I know. How am I going to do this? So I really recommend, if there's a topic page, looking at that article that's featured at the top as a good overview. And as they're reading, they might find out that, let's see here. I may not have chosen a good one to find keywords, but I don't know, assembly line. Like, I don't know what assembly line means. How does that relate to fast food? And you find out, well, it's thanks to the assembly line process that fast food is fast and affordable, or more affordable, and etc. I'm not promoting fast food here, people. Please understand. I just randomly picked a topic. Okay, so these articles are good, a really good place to help students develop background knowledge, to learn some of the vocabulary so that they can start understanding, whoa, this is a big topic and I'm mostly interested in this aspect of it. And here are some key words I could use. Besides that, these tools are always available in any Gale product. In elementary, they are little colored circles instead of looking like this in context elementary. But somebody asked about the cite option. The cite option is here. When you click on cite, it'll open it up and it'll let you pull the citation for this specific article in MLA format, APA, which I just heard that they switched to 7, so it ought to be filtering through any second now, because I don't know if you guys know, but APA switched to the 7th edition guidelines last October. And OSLIS's citation maker will be updated within about 2 weeks to APA 7. And you can choose Chicago. And then if you're using any of these products, you can export to them as well. Okay? So one way to find that is cite. Another way is that it's always at the bottom of the article, the same stuff. The citation itself, so you could just copy it. I'll say really quick, just as an FYI, that the citation is not 100% accurate, but Gale has done that intentionally. Like, let's say with APA, how long it's going to take to load that. I'm going to go back to the one I have loaded. With APA, it's with MLA, you're not supposed to use HTTP or TTPS anymore. You're just supposed to start with the link. Well, Gale found out that a lot of people use this link in the citation to get back to the product page, and they doesn't have the HTTPS in front of it. So they have chosen to include that, even though that is not accurate for citation. So that's up to you guys to decide if you if you care or not. Another tool that's very, very helpful is Get Link. It's kind of an odd name. I forget, it used to just be called Permalink. It used to have another name too. But basically, I'm in an article and I clicked on my permalink and it gives me a link that I can select and copy, and then I can just put it anywhere I want. I'm just going to open up a new tab and I'm going to paste the link that I just copied, and you're going to see it takes me right back to that same article. So for teachers or library staff who are building resource lists, or let's say the teacher is starting, let's just say on pyramids, you're studying pyramids, and you want to give your students like maybe 3 really good resources to read on their own before they go out. Well, let's just pretend this is about pyramids instead of fast food. I grab the link, I copy it, and I paste it into my pyramids assignment sheet or my pyramids page in my LMS, wherever you want to put it, okay? It's an extremely handy tool. Now it's supposed to, because I've already logged in when I grab the link, it's not supposed to ask for a login. If it does, a lot of times it only asks for one part of it. And it knows that you are Portland. So the only thing you need to put in at that point is the password. But if you don't remember, it's like, well, try your username. And if that doesn't work, try your password. So it's supposed to not ask you for a login. But if it does, it's the second part of your login, just the password. Okay? But that Get Link is powerful. It's a very handy tool. Now, I know we're getting close. I'm going to tell you about one more thing. Highlights and notes. Gale has this feature that I'm not even going to show you how to use. It's a good feature. But I think if you wanted to spend time highlighting or helping your students take notes for a document, I would first use the send to send it to Google Drive. And when you send it to Google Drive, it's going to ask you to which account, if you're like me and have 20. And it says, hey, okay, it's been sent there. And you say, okay. Well, now if I go to Google Drive, my Google Drive, you can find it several ways, but one of the easiest ways to find it is just right here at the top, because your quick access, the thing you most recently did. Oh, where did it go? Ah, pooey. It's not showing up there. I don't know why. I think my internet has got a lag. Anyway, it should show up there. Well, if there was anything that could go wrong today, that's not such a bad thing. Trust me, 9 times out of 10, it shows up there, okay? But I can also scroll for, and look for these orange folders. I did not make them orange. Gale made them orange, okay? And so you can see over the years, these are all the things that I have saved from Gale. But I just want to show you that once you're in the document, that's the point at which I would use my share link. If I wanted, like, say, 5 students, in groups to maybe find vocabulary words from this, or highlight main idea in detail, whatever you want them to do with it, I would say unrestricted, anybody can edit, or you could just change it to comment if you want. And then copy the link and then put it in your LMS or your assignment sheet, wherever you're going to need this. Because at this point, it's much easier to use collaboratively. You just add your comment. I'm already logged in, so it knows who I am. I add my comment, and then the next student can come along and say, I disagree because blah, blah, blah. So you can use this however you want to use it. If you wanted different small groups, you could put a link, the same link to each group, so that only the 5 people in group 1 are on this document, and then the 5 people in group 2 would be on a different version of this document. Okay. Alrighty. So I know it's 1 o'clock. What I'm going to say is I want to respect your time. I'm going to show you there is an evaluation form at the end. But I'm happy to stay on and show you a few more things. But let me just show you this. For those who do need to leave at 1, there's my email address. Greta, you can still see that, right? Okay. Okay, thanks. And there's my email address, and there is a survey, and I'm just going to grab the link, copy, and I'm going to put that into paste. And this is the survey link. Because OSLIS and the databases are funded through the IMLS, we are asked to do a survey to collect outcomes. So it takes like a minute or 2, that's it. So if you could just fill out that survey. And also before, in a day or 2, when we get this posted online, we're gonna send a link to it, and the link is gonna be to the recording, but also there's gonna be a tab for resources, and I'll highlight a few of these resources that I've shared today to make it easier to get to. And I should have told you that before you scribbled furiously for an hour, right? Sorry about that. And there's gonna be a link to the evaluation. So like if you are gonna send teachers, maybe when they watch it, if they could just use the non-library staff link at that point. But I'm assuming everybody on today is library staff. So I will say thank you, and anybody who wants to sign off right now is welcome to sign off, and I'm going to stay on for 5 or 10 more minutes, and I can show you a few things that I didn't get to and or still answer questions. Thanks, guys.
And I'm going to